Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast. This is episode 190, and I'm regular host, Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks. And joining me is my fellow doomed geneticist. And what do you think they call scientists specifically for Xenos?
Xenobiologists? I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean specifically XX121. Come on, Adam. We've got that canonized now.
You're thinking about this too much.
That is a crime I've never. Well, no, you do. You do accuse me of that often. Actually, thinking about it, but joining me as always is fellow partner in crime,
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop. Hey, it's early here when we're recording this, so I'm still in wake up mode.
It is certainly earlier than when we would normally record things, but that's just for this in and out for this very cool episode. What have we got in store, Mr. Zeller?
So I know some of you have been waiting for this. We have an interview with the director of Alien Romulus, Mr. Fede Alvarez, and it was so awesome for him to just give us the time of day to chat with us for 2 hours about his movie, which we both really enjoyed. So it was a great discussion, and I look forward to listening to it again because I haven't listened to it since we recorded. So,
indeed. Without further ado, we'll let you crack on and listen to Fede, and we'll talk at the end. So, enjoy. First of all, Fede, thank you for coming and nerding out with us. We very much appreciate you taking the time.
Of course.
But, before we start doing talking all the acid blood, appreciating dad jokes and all that kind of stuff, big congratulations on how well the film's been doing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for real.
No, it's good for all of us. I'm sure it's good for you two guys. Like, do anything, any excitement we can pump into this series is great for everybody. I mean, for me as a fan, it's just, I'd love to see suddenly people talking so much about Alien, and I have to explain anybody to younger people, why is it cool or what is it, right? I think the intention of the movie is to do that, right? Is to bring it to a new audience and tell you, like, let me show you why this is cool, why people love it so much. Hopefully, that's what you hope to achieve, and like that they walk out, young people that didn't know what it was, going like, oh, now I get it. My dad talks about it all the time. Right?
It's one of the interesting things about the gaps that we have in releases. So for like each of the AVPs, the prequels, and now this, it always brings in a different wave of film fans and of new potential fans, and it's always interesting to see the perspective shift on their first entries. I think we have a little bit of a soft spot for the AVP because it was our first film in the cinema. Compared we're a little bit, what are we, 30s, mid-30s?
Yeah, but I mean, Alien the director's cut was actually my first in 2003. But yeah, we've had 3 Predator directors on our podcast, but you're the first Alien director. So
there you go.
Again, thank you. It's just great.
Excited to be the first.
Well, I was. You know what? When I met you at the London presentation, I'd spoke to Disney beforehand. I went, "Is there going to be a chance to actually speak to him?" And they were like, "Nah, no chance." And then. And when,
to speak for themselves, obviously they usually, I guess, I don't know how that works. I think, like I told at the beginning, I don't, I haven't done many podcasts since about this movie. Usually have been like the short, very quick interviews where it's really hard to get deep into what the movie is, and also most of them all done before the movie comes out, so you cannot really talk spoilers, and I gotta beat around the bushes and a lot of subjects, and so it's really, for me, I was like, I can't wait for the movie comes out and sit down and talk with people that know, that understand it, that know it, that are fans, and people like you guys that know and live and breathe this. But also it's a thank you, because no one works as hard as you guys, people that really devote so much time to just talk about the franchise, right? So I thought, it would be completely unfair to really give time to that casual podcast that talks about a bunch of stuff and neglect the people that really put so much time and love to the franchise. So that's why I was just absolutely doing this. that's why I'm here, just to really be able to talk about it, and just in the most casual but specific way we can.
Yeah. Well, I hope you are very ready for nerdy ass lore,
I am.
implication, theme questions, and stuff like that.
No, and I'm glad you enjoyed the movie. Like, I know, look, it's tricky for the fans, for people like us that, if I was just watching it, being a fan of all of them, my first theatrical experience was Alien 3, but I was coming from, always, watching over and over Aliens on VHS, and loving the first one that actually watching television, which is so hunting to watch on TV at night. And so it is a long journey for me. And I know, it's one of the comparisons for me, which I've seen it because I've seen that. I'm stoked about the reaction. Like, I'm stoked that it's doing so well and people are coming and there's a new generation discovering. I'm stoked about it in general. The reviews have been positive and people like us. I mean, clearly that some people fucking hated it, but I wanted that. I actually said that publicly. I wanted, like, if you don't like it, I hope you really hate it, and don't go like, yeah, it just did not for me, whatever, that go all casual on it, because I think the best, really the best movies have to divide the audience in a way. I think at least, when you really try the same things that make one person love it is exactly what makes the other person hate it, right? Is exactly the reasons that usually makes you rebel against it. So if everybody likes it, I think you failed. You haven't really pushed it, or you didn't try anything, or you just went for the safe place. So I'm glad to see that. Some of that I was, and some of my fan friends, I could see that they were like, yeah, good job, I look great, and I was like, oh, yeah, he did like it. What I hope with some of my friends that are fans that give me the high voice, yeah, it's pretty good. It's that it kind of happens, hopefully, like it happened to me with music. Like, if you pick some of your favorite bands, right? I remember, like, I don't know, growing up in high school, and I'm like a big Metallica fan, and I remember the time when the Black Album came out, there was so much hate among the fans. The casual people just everybody fucking loved it, and it kind of made that a lot of people thought it was the first album. But for the ones that loved the Injustice for All, that still were, old enough in a way to have really enjoyed the change in tone, whatever was the change, or it was just the first time you listened to it, you kind of hate it, and then it grows on you. And I think all my favorite albums, the first time I heard them, I hated them. I just reacted against them in such a way that I was like, what the fuck is this? Even bands that people always showed me, like, you're gonna love this band, and they showed me, I don't know, Cowboys from Hell, or Sepultura, bands like that I grew to love. The first time, my first reaction was like, this is horrendous. But specifically, if I was a band that was a fan of, and the new album came out, and I couldn't wait to listen to it, my first reaction was, what the fuck is this? And then you listen to it again, and then you listen to it again, and you go like, fucking man, this is great. So there's something even about the fandom. When you're a fan, whatever your expectation is never met. It's never met.
No.
So that's why it's been for me fascinating to see, like, how the non-fan, the casual fan, and the hardcore fan react to the movie. And sometimes when the hardcore fan react against it, I've seen it with my movie, I've seen it with other movies as well. I always remember that sometimes even the first reaction is that, and then it grows on you, and then it stays with you, and because your expectation is so high. So, but anyway, I've been thrilled and fascinated, and hurt as well. I would say I always heard, read, and I try to not read bad reviews because they stay with you forever. So I tried not to. I learned my lesson. The only one I remember about Don't Breathe was like someone that says, like, don't breathe, more like don't go. And I'm sure there was a lot of really good ones, but that's the only one I can quote. So that's why I learned, like, I learned my lesson to not really go deep into the best stuff. But anyways, here we are.
It's funny you say that, though, because we've seen people say the comment, I wasn't too keen the first time, then I went back and watched it, and I really enjoy it now. And I think a lot of that is, I talked about this recently. It's when you know what to expect, and your expectations aren't influencing you, and you can appreciate what's actually there rather than fan film that you've made in your head based on, you know, on the spoilers and stuff. It's funny. I actually had a similar reaction, but it was mostly because of my seats. I couldn't see the film when I watched it.
To the screen.
Yeah, I was at the London premiere, the London
Oh, you were
Derby
there.
show, and
Yeah.
I had the second row all the way to the left, and I couldn't fucking focus on anything.
Oh man, that's a shame.
On IMAX,
so I came out of that absolutely fucking livid at how mardy I was.
Force Awakens was the same for me. And I don't particularly love that movie today. It's not like, oh my God, Force Awakens. But I remember I was cutting Don't Breathe when that movie came out. Went to Chinese theater, you know, the queue going around the block. And I feel like I'm back, you know, in the 70s, late 70s. I'm like, here we are, 78. The movie is going to come out. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, Star Wars, new Star Wars. I fucking hated it. I'm gonna explain how much I hated The Force Awakens when I went back to it. And that was an editorial and the next morning, just like complaining about it. And what the fuck, it's just a remake of how they didn't even try anything. And it just went on and about it. And then I went to see it again, and it was a completely different experience. I mentioned this because I saw kind of first row because it was so packed, the Chinese theater. It was IMAX as well. So I was kind of attacked by the movie on all fronts. I couldn't escape it. But I realized later, and that was a lesson for this movie as well somehow, I was like, you know what? That's the only movie they could have done. That's a movie they needed to make. What I realized, it was like there's so much people that don't know about it. The last Star Wars movie is fucking like episode 3, right? So it's just like it's a whole generation that don't know about this. And if you made it just for the fans that want to go deeper and want to go beyond, you'll be neglecting so much people, and it will fail, and it will be it will be probably a masterpiece, but it will be the last one because no one else will show up. That was my consensus at the time, was like, you know what? They did exactly what they needed to do, and look like it spawned, like, you know, for good and for bad sometimes, like a decade of Star Wars content. But movies and TV shows and all that. But so I remember like that was something, and I was expecting some of that to happen on this one. Though I don't think this is a remake, or that we didn't. Force Awakens is kind of the exact
entirely different,
right? Like here it's a mix, right? But it's not exactly any other movie, I guess.
But I mean, it's interesting you bring it up, because from a fandom POV, you know, that is one of the more contentious parts of Romulus. You know, is in some of the callbacks to the previous films. You know, I know some lines at the premiere.
Get away from her, you bitch! Everybody hates it. But dude, you get the biggest cheer every fucking time. And that's that I would love to see. I mean, let's go right into the most debatable thing, the whole get away from her, you bitch. This is how it goes down. It's not on the script, right? It's not on the script. I would tell you, it's not even on the script that Andy saves Rain. Why it's not on the script? Because it's a writer's strike while we're making this film, right? I don't know if you remember. Yeah. Which people didn't worry enough about that. Well, you guys never worry about too much about that, as you should have, because if you remember, the last strike destroys so many films. Like the follow up to Casino Royale, you know, was so bad because of the strike. There was a strike at the time, and they couldn't have a script, and they had to shoot it, and that's why I don't remember what's the name of that one, but it had her movies, because you cannot really work on the script anymore. By the time we were shooting this movie, we couldn't write a single word, and normally, because I'm the writer as well, you know, Rhoda and I will be reacting to some of the actor choices and massaging and changing things, which you could do during the strike. You could kind of on the spot add a line here and there, and the actors could do it. It's not that you couldn't, but you couldn't really deliver pages. I couldn't print pages and send. But we did make changes that we could, that were like between the, you know, the terms that WG allowed. And so again, so that wasn't, Andy was not going to say, Rain was going to save herself, but we thought, no, this makes sense. Andy needs to have save Andy needs to have a reward on her that can be dramatized, right? And so we thought, okay, we're going to do a bit of a you know, final, probably inspired by But a lot of things I do is Back to the Future. So it's like, you know, she's on the floor and George doesn't have it and has to take the courage to do it. And well, she's down there with the Xenomorph and he's up there and he hasn't been that brave person before. And he can take the sacrifice, even if he would have died, at least he would have done it for her. And he's on directive to do what's best for her. So there's no, he will have to do something, right? There's no way he can just stay there. But we shot the scene, you know, David Johnson shoot the Xenomorph and then kind of turns around, looks at her, doesn't say anything. I was like, "What's something fucking missing here? Like, there's just something missing." And I thought, oh, maybe we can kind of, and we go slowly first. We was like, maybe you want to try like just get off my sister or some line. I mean, it's just to give the audience some release. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. So David goes for it, goes like, get off her or some bullshit, and it's like, it doesn't work, doesn't land, doesn't, and then Rodo, who was there, was like, why don't you just go for like, get away from her. That's it. You know, get away from her. We just got, I was like, do you think, yeah, let's fucking do it. So we do it. He does it once. And then I go, and then it was too tempting. And I go, it's like, fuck it. Let's just have it take. And then what you do usually when you shoot it, you want to have options. You don't know you're going to use it then in the movie. So at the moment, it was just more like, okay, you know what? Let's try it. And this subtle stutter on the bitch. And David goes like, fuck, no, don't make me do this. Just don't make me do this. It was like, dude, just try it. If it's terrible, we won't use it. And David, being the great actor he is, he was like, okay, I got you. I'll give it a shot. We do it. And then we were cutting the movie when we're going to test it, you know, we do one screen before blocking the film where you do it, you know, an audience, you test it. And I was like, I know it's a bad idea, but if I don't test it, I'll never know, you know, right? But what I did know was the story that Cameron had told me about him screening Open at Night Aliens and having a cold audience that didn't react throughout the whole film, and Cameron being worried that the movie wasn't working. And when Ripley comes out on the power loader and says, "Get away from her, you bitch," the whole audience exploded in a cheer. And he was like, fuck, I got him. And he said, like, all my movies are trying to, you know, go for that moment in some way or another. And so with that in mind, I guess, like, I got to try it just in case I have a cold audience. And at that point, I don't know if I have him or not. And we said, like, you know, I can always take it out. And we put it in almost like as a crazy experiment. Like, let's try it. That's the point of a test screening, right? And we put it in, and you have no idea. The cheer on that audience was insane, but it was crazy as it was in Open Night, as it was last weekend when I went to see it with a friend here in LA again. You know, every fucking time the whole thing explodes. And so at that point, it was just like, there's no way I get pulled back on this just to not upset the percentage of the audience that remembers the line so well, which you tell you, even people that tell you they're super fans of Aliens, they might not have that. Oh, you tell them and they go, oh yeah, I remember that line. But for us, it's like, oh, that's so obvious because you kind of live and breathe this franchise. But then for the casual fans and they might not know. So most people in the audience don't see it as that. And also I made sure that it was earned in the story. It was that is earned, and that was actually the only part of that. We had a 1 day of reshoot. So there was things that I want to do better. We didn't change much anything, but we just want to add some things. And one of the things, I don't think it's part of the reshoots, part of the ADR, was to make sure that Bjorn called him a bitch at least 3 times to justify why the fuck does he say that? Because I didn't want to say, like, it's a coincidence that, you know, she said it had to be felt that it's something he's learning, like the Terminator learns, you know, like human slang, right? So exactly. So it's like, oh yeah, he's been called that a few times, and he wants, like he said to his sister, I want you to see me as a man and not as a child, and as a way of showing bravado, like he just goes and do it. But anyways, that was one of them. But I remember, like, Alex Garland was one of the first directors that I've seen it, because my editor had caught Civil War and had a good relationship with him, so he showed it to him, and that was Alex's big note. And he was right. He was right about it. He was like, every line that connects to the classics just turns me off. But at the same time, I was like, you got to be really an expert to make those connections. And for me, a lot of it was just the pleasure of doing it. But he was he complained. He definitely complained about that one. But then I was like, you know what? I think it will be. My instinct told me it should be fun. And then again, like I said, every time I heard it, I watch it with an audience. There's no fucking way they don't cheer that. And then the other ones don't hurt anybody that don't know the things by heart, right? Like, and the script defense as well. When people go like, "Oh, it's not fun service. It's just for myself. I don't try to service anybody really. It's just to do exactly what I want to do. It's just like in the moment you go, oh, it's a pleasure to hear those lines said on an alien ship, and you go for those. Never trying to. People think about these movies from made by a corporation like this thing, and it's not at all. It's been done in such an independent spirit. Like Roder and I really the company, the company, I call the company Disney, the company really let us do what we wanted. 20th Century was completely hands off in many aspects of the film, and really let us go for those things. And the few callbacks are, being, I think, remind me if I'm missing one of those. That's one of them. The other one being, the ones that Rook says, and even I prefer the term artificial person. They're a fucking robot. They are made by the same company. They have a limited amount of expressions that are programmed on them. So naturally, they're going to say the same thing when they're being called something different, artificial person. They program to trigger that. So I think if you're faithful to the canon, you want to be like, it's just like a computer says the same thing in the same sort of expression. I thought it makes sense that when someone is in danger and they don't think they're going to make it, they say, I cannot lie about your chances, but you have my sympathies. They're programmed to do that. And that one is the same fucking model as the other one. So you definitely got to say it. It's actually, it will be weirder if he goes, hey guys, sorry, seems like you're not going to make it. I'll go, how? What? Why would he say it differently? He's the same model, so that is programmed. And so I think that one, and I don't know what other callbacks.
Busy little creatures.
Busy little creature. Yeah, that's one that went too far, and I took that one out a few times, and then someone loved it. I don't know, someone loved it, and I was like, no, I just put it back. It's just such a great Burke line. Which again, if you remember that fucking like Burke said that, you're such a like you're the 0.1% of the audience. So to really, again, I tried. You have to make it for everyone. You have to make it for everyone. If you make it just for that specific group that I consider myself in, that I remember all the lines, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about all the fan base about all the films. I mean, like it would be the last one. There will be the last one. It will be the kiss of death for the thing, because the whole masses that go to the theaters will go like, the fuck, they would be lost and confused. So anyways, that's why I had those things.
It's funny you mention, it being for yourself as well, because Adam and I have consulted on like a couple of the books, and one of the things we always push back on was stop reusing dialogue. Mm-hmm. And the editor flipped us off and said the authors like doing this. It's for them enjoying getting to play in this sandbox. So you having that same sort of sensation as well there is pretty much on par.
Yeah, and I get it. And look, you learn your lessons. You see what works, what doesn't. There's some things, there's no, it's all a big swing, any movie, right? You just take so many risks and bets that you hope is going to work, and you never know for a fact. And some things and again, you can only do it based on your own instinct. What do you want to see? What do you want to enjoy seeing on the screen? And so everything that is in the movie, in general, it's all ideas that I had with the actors or with the co-writers that were completely behind it. And then and they see how people seem. Look, I thought they would have get more of a kick out of that, and they didn't. And that's how you learn to be a better filmmaker. You just make movies, and you see people reaction. You chat with friends, and that will tell you the truth about what the experience was, and you learn.
Yeah, that's fair.
So we have a few questions for you that you might want to get to.
Yeah, and like I said, don't worry about whatever you pre-program with the company to tell them. I didn't know they do that. I just saw there were questions, but you can ask whatever you want.
So I have to ask real quick: was when Tyler gets rushed by the Xenomorphs before he gets killed, and he says, "Is that all you got? Is that all you got?" Was that an intentional callback to Alien 3 when Dylan? Or is that just coincidental?
Not really, no, because I remember that later. I gotta say that a lot of the things, what happens a lot of times here, and the process of making this is like before shooting it and while you're writing as well. What I do that I expose myself to so much material. The movies, the comic books, some of the novel stuff, like the unshot scripts, the old versions of Alien 3, that audiobook that's great. Like, you overload your brain with all this stories in this world.
So you might not even consciously.
Yeah, exactly. So then you feel that something is right, that then feels part of the universe. You go like, this feels right in this moment, and then someone says like, but that is exactly what happened on this or that movie. And you go, oh, it's true, yeah. But it not necessarily is something that you go, I'm gonna do exactly, what he did in that film. No, it's but I wanted him to stall. I felt like it makes sense that he trying to stall them because his friends are down there, and so if he was gonna just scream and be scared, or try to scare them, or actually try to lure them away, it might not be good for who's down there. So I thought he would be just probably trying to get them to stay longer.
I was just curious about that one. So our first question here, from the very start of the promotional campaign for Alien Romulus, the presence of the facehuggers was very prominent, evoking images of similar scenes in the comic book Aliens, Berserker, and Frenzy. Given how deep you dived into the expanded universe, we were curious how intentional this was. Did you look to expanded media in terms of having a lot of facehuggers on screen?
Oh, that was just based more on the question that we ask ourselves at the beginning of any process like this one, which is what are the things we haven't really seen in these films, right? Like that's got to be one of the first questions anybody asks himself. You're gonna do a new story in a series, and particularly here, like when there's been so many stories through so many years. Like, it was important to ask ourselves, like, what is the thing I have not seen before? Which is the same questions that people that have done the comics and the novels ask themselves as well. So that's why usually you'll find coincidences there. I always found the facehuggers to be the scariest thing in this series as well, just because of the concept that implies. If you really go movie by movie, they're never really done much with them. I mean, the first one obviously is a moment that is you just see it active on one jump, and that's it. Then he's obviously breathing and alive on Kane's face, but then he's just dead. So there wasn't much happening there. On part 2, you have that great scene, which is such a classic scene and so scary to see those guys running around on that red room, but that was it. And then I don't know, part 3, did he have them really, right? Apart from the later moments of the credits with the fingers. So it was one of the things. And part 4, I don't remember. I mean, they had them there coming out of the eggs, right, and jumping in people's faces. When the guys are just the faces, as a way to get it. I think that was, and then I think probably when they come out of the water and they have them there, but they never really. I don't feel like it. I really want to explore them more and see them do more things. And the horde of facehuggers was always something that I thought was going to be terrifying, because it felt like unescapable, right? So there was something that definitely I wanted to bring back, but it wasn't really based on any specific, comic book or novelization or novel, right?
Yeah, I think it was just so effective in the film. Just we've never seen this sheer amount of facehuggers coming at someone before in the movie. There was a recent game called Aliens Dark Descent that kind of had something similar, where a whole room just gets swarmed with facehuggers. So
I haven't finished the game yet, but I'm playing it right now. Actually, I mean, I started playing months ago, but I love those type of games. Yeah, I haven't got to that stage yet. There's a lot of facehuggers all of a sudden. I remember that.
Yeah, I think it was towards the end of the second mission. But it's it's like you say, it's not something we see a lot of.
Yeah.
And when we have those moments, like in Frenzy, what was it called? I think it was Berserk, and then it got renamed Frenzy. But it's those moments that stand out as those ones because it's things we haven't seen before. And when it came to Romulus and seeing all that prominence of the Facehugger, was like, okay, yeah, we're going to get to see what the comics can do a little easier because they don't have to worry about special effects and everything.
Yeah.
But now we get it on the big screen.
So back when we knew very little about the film, there were rumors that Phoebe Waller-Bridge was in talks to appear in the film as Rook. We've also heard reports of earlier test screenings that had no Rook character, but rather the characters communicating with Mother. Rook ultimately became a combination of puppet and CG character, but we were curious about the possible earlier versions of that character.
Those two things you said at the beginning are completely false. That was never... We never opened up to cast as much as you remember. It was written as a female android, yes, on script originally. Maybe someone made a list at some point of who could play it that I never saw, and she was in it. She's an amazing actor, so I could see her. I guess I could see her in it. No, it was never true or real, or we never went out to try to cast anybody for that role. The idea of Ian Holm came about very early on the process. So we knew, because it was more based on the fact, as I talked about this before, it was more on the fact that we knew we were going to build an animatronic that was going to be at the table. It was going to have to be do all these things. That wasn't going to do a full-on CG character. And we talking with Ridley, that idea came about of bringing the best, the likeness of the best synthetic and the whole series. And So then when we shot it, there was never definitely a version where he was not in it. He was always there. It was just full on. It was just a full on puppet, probably on the version that people saw on the test screening. There might have been already something on the lips or something, but I think it was probably just a full-on puppet, which the guys from League of Legacy Effects did. And though it was great when he wasn't doing, obviously when he didn't have to say such a complex dialogue. There's no technology to just get the lips to move in such a way and express all that. And again, I'll tell you, I mean, there's a couple of shots on that about Rook that I hate, that I watched in the movie. I was like, fucking hell. But we knew the problem sometimes of this big ambitious ideas is that most of the time, not most of the time, but sometimes it happens, you will run out of money and time to do it the way you want it. And there's just technology doesn't exist. It gets to a point that people that are on the other side just like, we just that's this as best as we can do. And there was, I think the only thing I would have probably done differently looking back is the amount of, because what you see on the screen is a mix of the puppet and a mix of the CG that they used to, the company did it. I think for most part did a great job in many shots. I think it gets way better later on in the story. I think there's a first 2 or 3 shots that I really don't think they work. And I was never really 100% worried. I was never too worried, partly because I knew what happened. But again, going back to the discussion between the fans and the non-fans, I remember showing it to a casual moviegoer, at the office, and he was like, "What's happening? What am I supposed to be seeing?" Because he didn't know Ian Holm. He didn't know he was trying to be someone that recreated anybody. So they just saw someone on the table that looks fucked up. You know what I mean? So because he has no legs and he's not functioning, and he's dripping milk out of his face. So so that gave me peace of mind that it wasn't going to be distracting to anybody that didn't know. That usually is the case with these things. If you know there's a trick, you find a trick, you look for it, you scrutinize it. If you don't expect that there's supposed to be a trick, it doesn't bother you that much. But I think the only thing probably, and my VFX supervisor was pushing more in that direction, that was to embrace more of the puppet. So there was to do, let's say 50-50, like 50% CG, 50% the puppet. And then we went a little bit over. We went probably 75% CG and 25% just for the face, right? The hair, the ears, actually the nose. A lot of what you see is actually his face. Is real puppeteering. but it was that mix there that made it more challenging that we thought was going to be, right.
There's a shot I love of Rook when he turns to watch everybody leave, after that initial moment with Navarro.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my favorite shots of the effect.
It's great. And that was almost 100% puppeteering. It just has something in the eyes, but that's a good example. But when he grabbed his arm, my favorite is when he grabbed his hands and goes, like, humans go through many emotion stages before accepting the cold, right, yet rational, sometimes hardest truth, hardest path. And when he says that, that's a really good close-up, and I thought he looked amazing on that one. So it's really the problem with technology. It's just there to do it a certain way, and some shots don't work so well. And the only way to learn is by doing and go through the whole process of making the movie. And that's where you go, fuck, okay, good, that works, that doesn't. There's no other way, unfortunately.
So on the topic of Ian Holm, I'm led to believe there's a bit more to the story than you've spoke about in terms of securing his likeness.
Well, I'll tell you the story. I don't know what so was saying. We basically, I reach out, I think legally at the time. I actually just read that it's been approved. Like, that's great. That the SAG passed this law where you gotta have the consent of the state, which I completely agree with. But at the time we were doing it, that was not a law. Actually, Disney could have, if they wanted, do it without the consent of the state, because it's a character that they own the likeness of that character. But I remember they told me that at the time. I was like, I don't care about what's you cannot do. I'm gonna call the state and ask them personally and make sure they're cool with that. And I don't think it was something we were legally needed to do, but I felt I would have never won that to be done without the consent of the family. So I spoke with his widow, which is the one that runs the state, and she was the one that gives the good to go. And she said that Ian would have loved to get the call to be in an Alien movie because he loved that character. And so anyway, so that's basically what went down. We just make sure they want to do it, and thank God they were cool with it, and thank God we did it that way. I would have never done it a different way. It was really I took it very personally. I needed to make sure that she was okay with it.
I had to ask you about the Offspring, because that thing is fucking nightmare fuel. For me personally, one of the things I always love about the franchise is the way it affected me on an emotional and physical level like that. Part of the reason I'm so obsessed with the series is because it gave me nightmares as a kid. My memories of playing Isolation for the first time are coming out and having a literal adrenaline come down from having experienced that game for the first time. Yeah. And the films and the franchise haven't really affected me like that until that dead quiet fucking moment on that screen where you see the Offspring for the first time, just deathly silent. I went home after seeing the film, and I was seeing that face in the corner of the dark room. So that thing is fucking terrifying to me. So thank you for that, for giving me some sleepless stuff there. And obviously we're starting to see some of the concepts come out. We're starting to see other explorations of the character, and we've again test screens. We've heard about other ways that it sort of started to grow into being more alien in those earlier versions. One of the things I'm kind of curious about, in a twisted way that Alien tends to be twisted with the sexual themes and messaging and visuals and stuff. And I hope this doesn't sound too much of a weird question.
That's what I'm here for. Weird questions. The standard ones I heard a billion times at this point.
You mentioned recently, and it's obvious in the film if you're paying fucking attention to the visuals, but the baby's father is Bjorn, who is Kate's cousin.
Yeah.
So how intentional is the fucked upness of the Offspring in being an incest baby?
Some would call it very. someone call. I mean, I heard so many names how they call it. It was something that was really funny. I heard online. It was something like the Bjorn Spring. But I mean, like I thought it makes sense. I mean, first of all, it makes complete sense in a colony where there's not a lot of people in that colony. It's crowded because they're the only place where they can have enough of a breathing air. That's why it's so cloudy. And it's like they have a bit of an micro atmosphere in this section of the planet with whatever technology they have there, being right next to the atmosphere processor. But there's not a lot of people. It's just everybody's there. It's crowded, and then a lot of people are dying in the colonies, and it's kind of a failed project for Weyland-Yutani, some of this shake and bakes. And so we knew there was definitely not going to be a lot of young people, right? There's going to be are probably the first generation that was born there, and most of them. And so then if you look at the history, most of the times when that happens, and I'm not going too far back in history, in any place in the world is quite remote. It's not, you don't have a lot of options. So your cousin is totally fine. And what that will do to the lineage, like down the line, and who knows, but definitely it's not. And it's not like you got to have a kid with your cousin and it's going to be all fucking weird. Like people think that. I don't think that's, but I'm not a science or like, and so I don't know exactly how that goes down, but and royalty has always been that way, that's for sure. So we thought, but I knew that people were gonna get a kick out of it. It was mostly based on, and it was one of those secrets that we discuss with the actors when we talk about their relationships, etc. But then the decision to show it was actually made by the actors on that little brief moment where they find each other again, and Bjorn checks on her in such a way that you realize there's something romantic going on. That was a decision made for them, made by them on the day, and I actually catched it on editorial. It's like, oh wow, like they're really showing it. And then I thought it was fitting, that the kid was that. Actually, I always get a chuckle when, I cannot help but laugh at the beginning when on the second viewing, right? When she goes, I'm just happy this baby's going to get to see the sun. And knowing what that baby is going to be like, it's just such a nihilistic screenwriting moment. But I think it's fitting. I think it makes sense, and it was always the intention that it was going to be the idea that the child of this kind of somehow incestuous relationship was going to be that thing, right?
So not too heavy into the idea then, or intentionally heavy into the idea that it's fucked up because of that.
Well, no, I mean that wouldn't have been real life. It's definitely fucked up because of the black goo that she injected herself, and how that changed her DNA, and the combination of it, combined with definitely that, I would say that probably will do an extra stake. We'll have to see if we get to explore that in a different story, if someone else gets to do it in a comic book, a novel, what happened with people that are not related, are pregnant and they get injected with the same Z01 compound and see what happens. So until then, we won't know.
Why? Just out of interest, sorry, still on that topic. Why did you pull back from it going full alien? I mean, I prefer it as it is in the finished cut, but what led to that creative pullback?
Of just moving into aliens eventually, you mean?
No, so the Offspring,
yeah. I think we, like always, there's always experimentation. For me, it has to, the whole process of making a movie has to be as organic as it can be. I think the strike here probably didn't help us to make it more organic than it should be, because we couldn't really write anything, so we couldn't really change things. That's one of the reasons why I always try to shoot as linear as I can, because if midway through the story I start realizing a character maybe deserves to live, or a character or relationship I'm not buying, or and so then I decide that the end will be like you find out those people didn't love each other that much, or this, you know what I mean? Like you have to allow the writing to be as organic as it can be, but obviously you need to be able to, if you shoot it if you don't shoot it in order, then that's not a possibility. So that's why I usually try to shoot the movies as linear as I can, so I can be organic on the writing. So that fourth act, technically, that is that ending. We there was a section of it that we knew we could experiment, because once we were outside in space, we know we're going to depend more on CG. Always things that were, even on the CG that we have a lot of it, obviously, but mostly it was always scanned from real things. So we're built by hand, sculpted by someone, and then scan and then turn to an asset, instead of building a full-on CG asset like they do most of the time in these movies, and big blockbuster movies, I guess. I don't know if we qualify as one of those, but so it was we knew we'd have some leeway there at the end to see what it does, and I got tempted at some point to think, what would happen if you keep evolving? Because if it grows so fast from a baby to an adult, then what makes it stop? Would it age and die? No, I don't think they age and die. It just, would it keep evolving? So we see its tail grow, right? Like when he's like breastfeeding on his mother, like we see the tail growing that he doesn't have at the beginning, and then I was tempted to see what happened if we go beyond. And we did some tests. It was actually, I think on the only test screen we did was there, that you can see. It was actually pretty cool. You had some spikes coming out of inside the tubes and growing a bit more and becoming some sort of hybrid of what you saw, a bit of a xenomorph, a bit of a queen, and I don't know. At some point, I felt it was unnecessary. Actually, Alex Garland, I know I have to thank him again, like for that. Like he was, what it wasn't was one of the notes he gave when he saw the cut, when it was almost done, right? Like he just throw that one in there. Like the creature was so cool that why change it? So we basically stopped the evolution. But I think that the strongest DNA eventually would have won. And I believe the Xeno DNA is the strongest DNA there, and it would have eventually, if it kept evolving, could have eventually looked like a Xenomorph, right? Like full on Xenomorph.
That's fair. I'm glad you pulled back though, because I think he's just so terrifying in that sort of fucked up human visage. It worked a lot better for me as was. So
good. I'm proud of it too. I'm proud of it, and the way we did it as well, with an actor and some of the. I mean, I cannot explain to you what it was to be on set with that character and see it next to you, and it was just magical. It's completely magical.
That behind the scenes video you posted recently of just showing him next to Kaylee is just wild. How tall he is.
It's crazy.
I don't think you realize how tall those people are until you see them. In scale like that. I mean, sometimes even not. I've met Ian White once. Who was the last engineer in Prometheus.
Yeah,
and I was like, and he's not even the tallest guy in the world. Don't get me wrong, he's fucking tall. But even then, I didn't truly appreciate the size of the engineer or the predators that he played in the AVPs until I was literally next to him, just craning my neck up, looking at him, and Rob looks so much fucking taller.
Yeah, well, even in the movie, it's hard to really see it, because I think people think either it's an optical illusion, like some Gandalf, force perspective thing, or they think it's CG, like a lot of that. Which I was shocked when I posted the behind the scenes, that people were like, I thought it was CG. I was like, how come? It was such a heartbreak to see, that those things happen. It's just so out of this world that you assume is CG, but some people really went like, it didn't look real. Like that was not good CG. I was like, dude, it's real. But I mean, I'm also happy to see a lot of people that just got really, that was the best thing that could happen to them, to just confirm to their friends that it was actually the real. But yeah, it was a miracle. Really, it was so strange and so incredible. And he was incredibly talented. I mean, it's not like I told him on the day, like to be tall is one thing, but to be able to do that performance is so hard. I mean, I tell you, any of us, you put it there, like you have to be on that whole makeup, you're almost naked on set, and have to really go at it and go face to face with Isabella. When he's breathing on her neck, trying to find the scent of the milk of the black goo, and she pushed him away. The way he reacts, such a good performance. You really believe he's a curious animal that just was being born, and every take he did was incredible. It was not that, and for someone that never been in a movie, that is the first time, he barely understood how the process of filmmaking worked. It's like he was learning every day, and he was so good. Like a truly talented man.
Stepping in Balaji's shoes, that was the same situation for him in Alien.
Yeah.
Did you, so when you write in, when you've come up with the idea of this Offspring, in your head you're like, I'm gonna have to do this by fucking CG, or I'm gonna have to do this by puppet, and then you look out finding Bob? Had you already?
I definitely never approach it like it's gonna have to be CG. Definitely. My first approach is the whole movie will have zero CG. That's my approach. That's my first instinct. Like let's try to see if we can pull this off, right? And then you hit reality, many things that you cannot do. Those space shots and everything will be really unlikely. You just paint that by hand, that background, and even if you could, it will be. Who knows? I think if you have the time and the money, I think you could probably pull off a full, practical movie. It will have limitations, but you probably could. The story was intended to be done that way because that's how I approach it. But that I always make sure that I shoot for the stars. That I really, at least the first intention is what I feel is the right way, the ideal way. And then you have to compromise at certain levels, but at least if you start up there, you'll get whatever is the final thing. You'll be as close as possible to the ideal scenario. And instead of compromising on day one, like it happens a lot of times. So on the page, it was probably we were definitely thinking, we'll find someone that can really pull this off. And you had example of obviously Javier Botet, and you have it was obviously, but for me, one of the scary things, and we've done it. Evil Dead had some of that at the end of the first of my Evil Dead, like when that abomination come out of the ground is kind of similar in a way. He was not that tall, but he was a very skinny guy. The one that played the abomination, and that one, and probably a lot of the inspiration is that guy from Wreck, you've seen the Spanish movie, like, and that's Javier Botet, just one of the most terrifying presence in our movie for me when that character shows up. So we knew it was possible to find it. We just need to find someone. And Rhoda, my co-writer, just found it and saw those YouTube videos that went viral at the time, and it was like, look at this guy, and I went like, wow, we showed it to the Legacy guys first, and was like, do you think this makes sense? And they were like, fuck yeah, it makes sense. Let's just go for it. And I reached out to him personally and thought, I asked him if he wanted to be in the movie, and he was thrilled. And I was like, let's do it. He didn't even understood exactly what he needed to do or who he was going to play, and I kind of explained to him, but I think he discovered as he was going but I think he had a great time. It was hard work for him, but I think he had a good time.
So when we opened up the floor to our community to submit questions to ask you, the most popular one was about your thoughts on the blue laser in the hive. Its function in Alien has often been debated, and it nearly appeared in Alien 3, but ultimately didn't. Its presence in Alien Romulus would seem to suggest the laser is a biological function of the aliens themselves, rather than space jockey technology. Did you have any thoughts on its purpose or on how the aliens could create it?
Well, I think, look, when it comes to, there's many questions that will come, like that one, that will come out of the movie, and I think if I tell you, I ruin it. You know what I mean? Like I really subscribe what, Tarantino says about his movies as well. Like if you tell you what's inside that suitcase on Pulp Fiction, it will destroy everything. Like the whole point is whatever is your guess is probably right, and whatever you think as long as it makes sense, is right. I have my theories. I would never write it unless I have a really strong point of view of why that works. But I wouldn't want to say something that gets quoted and then this is what it is, you know what I mean? Because I think what some of us suffered with the prequels was to find answers to questions we thought we want to have, and then we realize it just takes the magic out of them when you know the answer, right? So I think a lot of the things are the same. Like we feel like we want to know, and rarely an answer it was really good, makes you go, oh God, that's so cool. You know, usually the answer would be like, any answer will be what, or will make you go, I don't think that makes sense, or we just so I think that's, for me, it was great to find one of the big mysteries that hadn't been explored. You know, what is that thing? Without giving too much of an answer to it, I think if in any way it clearly seems to be connected to some sort of alarm system of like, when you break it, they know you're there, right? That's what he seems to do in the first film, to me, at least. If my memory of watching that film and seeing him touching as soon as he falls on the blue laser, you go like, oh, you're fucked, you know, like there, and the egg react as he comes closer, but he has just crossed the blue mist, you know, the blue laser. So there's something. Again, look, at the time when they did that, no one knew what a laser light was, really. You know what I mean? Like that was, you have to fact check me on this, but really, I think tells a story. Like there were, I think it was Pink Floyd or someone that was doing the recording show, The Who, they go, and they were there and they borrowed the laser from their show and they brought it into set. So at the time, it was a magical thing to see. You know, we forget. You go, oh, it was a laser. That's it. But at the time, in S39, like no one had really seen that sort of thing. It was so magical and science fiction. It doesn't feel like it come from somewhere. It's just there. You know, it's just there, just like a thin layer of mist that is blue and is floating. That's really what it's supposed to. They never. You know, John Hurt doesn't say there's a laser coming from somewhere, you know, because that's not what's supposed to be. So when you say a laser, you go because you know the technology, but it is what he says it is in the first movie. It's a thin layer of mist that seems to react to the touch. So I think now, you know, and even in the first movie, you could see the source of it. You can clearly see it. And in mine, I mean, you can call it, if you look for it, you'll find it. We actually did some CG to extend it so it didn't feel so sourcey and that you feel more uniform, so it could be more this uniform layer of mist, of blue mist that covered the place. And I don't think it's coincidence that as they're discovering it and they're stepping on it, would reveal a Xenomorph kind of activate itself like right behind them and start moving up, and soon enough they're being chased by 11. So there gotta be some connection between them and the laser, of course, right? That's my guess.
But don't think of it as a laser. I think he's Fede.
Again, the thing is, he's like what John Hurt is, a thin layer of mist.
It's that was one. Seeing that in the trailer, I was like, "Ooh, this is back. Are we gear? What we're going to do with this one?"
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of funny, really. You know, of all the when you see the film, then you go online and we asked, "What do you want us to ask Fede?" That's the thing that people were really intrigued by. But it's opened up other conversations. Like I don't think people knew that was nearly an Alien 3 at one point.
And I think a lot of people remember. I'm telling you, it was on the day we shot that. It was the day I could tell the fans from the posers on the set, because a lot of people on the set of this movie with like Alien shirts and T-shirts and stuff, and saying like what a big fans they are, and you know, I don't expect people to be experts, and I would never demand anybody. But if you say you're a fan and you're an expert, well, you better be. And then there was on that day, I remember like firing up the laser, and a lot of people that told me they were fans are like, "What is this thing? What is the deal with this thing? What is this? What is that supposed to be?" And I'm like, and I was like, "Don't what?" It was like what? And I was like, the first movie. It was like, what? It's like, oh god damn it! Again, you're not a fan. So that day, I remember like kicking out of my list of people I thought were fans out of the list because they wouldn't really remember it. They wouldn't remember it.
They weren't invited to the next barbecue.
No, exactly. They're not invited to the barbecue. But that's something that I think it was a pleasure to see it coming alive. But I did not imagine it would have been like they discover on the wall and they open and they see some technology there that's finally. You don't want to see any of that. You know what? An explanation that shows where it comes from. That kills all the magic. You know, the whole thing with these things is you don't want to know how it works. You know, you don't want to know how it works. You know, you want to use it. I think the idea was to, you know, but that's why, you know, once she comes back, you know, there's this whole thing of like, it's just an alert system for me. It's what tells them they're right there. You know, they're right there.
So one of those things that's intentionally a little mysterious and open to interpretation.
Yeah, like I think most of these things should be to work great, you know, the mystery of it, you know. Otherwise, after all these years, if every movie just answered, there will be no mystery left, and
no description.
You'll have no life left on it if you just keep opening all the doors and revealing all the mysteries of it, right?
Yeah. So it's still kind of just move on the same sort of thing, you know. In that regard, then you have this answer in your head as you're writing. Did you also? This is where I feel like maybe we're getting too nitpicky here, but this has also been a comment we've sort of seen on online, is if it's a biological thing of the alien, if the aliens are doing it somehow, why is it not in Aliens then? Was there an answer in your head? You know,
but that's a question for Cameron, because if you think about it, there's a lot of things Cameron changed on Aliens that he just didn't think looked good, you know, like, you know, based on those reasons. I mean, if you Shane Mayhem, who worked on our movie with the, you know, all the Xenomorphs and such, and many of the Cocoon, he and Rook and the Offspring, he worked on, there's photos of him painting the Queen, right, or the Queen alien, on Aliens, and so, and I remember he was telling me at the time, one of the happiest news for him was when I told him we definitely keeping the dome. He was like, "Oh, thank God," because I remember that he broke his. He always tell how he was heartbroken when Cameron just asked him to remove all the domes from the creatures on Aliens, right? So why is it no domes on Aliens? Same reason why there's no laser. You know, Cameron thought they didn't need it. You know, I think that is the only answer, because there's no, I wouldn't say there's a lot of possible logic there of why they look so different when they're supposed to come from the same derelict ship. You could argue many years, decades went by, which is another big mystery. I would love to know how that thing's still there, and the eggs haven't rotten and they still alive, and are they a society? What did they do? Is like, oh, this the same eggs are completely different eggs. They just live there. That's their world. The derelict ship is their world. It's many questions of why so many years later still there. So anyways, but yeah, I think same reason why they don't have a dome. I think it's a Cameron question. Something to ask him.
Okay, I'll when we get the chance then, Jim. Speaking of the smooth head, thank you for the skull. I'm Team Skull when it comes to
inside,
inside. And you know, when you had those the close-ups of Big Chap all crucified, and there was the very obvious skull there, I was like, thank you, Fede, because that is that's another one of the fandom arguments online is, are you Team Skull? Do you like the skull noticeable, or do you like it not?
Yeah, it's true. I like that you do notice it. I think it adds a super creepy element. And again, I think what's always so scary about the Xenomorph is the human element, right? It's when you see the human teeth. You know, I'm sure you've seen some of those AI generated Xenomorph images online, and they usually have like very sharp teeth for some reason.
Yeah. That's because they lean into the monster, doesn't it?
They're not that scary for me anymore. They're not that disturbing. They're just a monster, just a random generic monster creature that you've seen a billion of them. But once you add those like normal human teeth that you would say they're less aggressive somehow, it's just scarier for me because it's more human. It's when you see yourself in the monster, when you see what the hands, when you see, I still remember the first time I saw the first film, what terrified me was when I saw the legs on the last shot, you never saw in the whole film. And then suddenly you see the legs and you go, oh, fuck, it's a man. It's just like just a person that it's just something truly disturbing about that concept, like bringing the human element to it. So the skull is an extension of that, I guess. It's just to see that there's a lot of you in it. Right. That's why I thought I wanted to see it, and even on a standard, not just the big chap, the corpse, but also the other ones. When the light hits it, you can see it, and even when they have the little spark that Scorched Xenomorph has in its head, like you can see the skull inside. Right?
The spark was really cool. Was that So, okay, I'm kind of curious as to the creative process on this bit as well, you know, because everybody thinks of, well, not everybody thinks, everybody knows, you know, it is a biomechanical design.
Yeah.
So, was the spark to lean into the biomechanics, or was it more the?
I think it was too. I think it's a fact that definitely is biomechanical, and we embrace that on the design this time. It was also because he's being charged with all this electricity, you know, that Bjorn hated when he was in the womb, still inside the cocoon. But then it was also very important and necessary to give it a signature, not just for the movie, but to separate it with the other ones. We knew there's going to be a horde, and then if you don't do that, how do you recognize which one is the first one? And I think it's always better when you can see, oh, this is that guy. He's the one that's really pissed at them. You know, it's the one that they try to kill inside a cocoon, and he just it takes it personally with this group of people. I think there was something about that that just was important. So you feel it more, and otherwise it would have been, oh, they killed just a random one at the end. It would have felt, I think you wouldn't have got that cheer out of the audience if people didn't feel he was the one that it took K and you know, did most of the damage, right? And to give the kill shot to Tyler. I think you won one that felt like a bit of the lead one, so it was based on our necessity to give that one something specific. You know, that was different from the other ones, and I think definitely it makes sense when someone probably said, well, but how would the energy stay there? I was like, well, he's completely biomechanical. It's definitely part of that, and actually. I'm sure you see it really in the film, but actually on those trading cards that have fun making this last few days, and I got to release more today. The trading cards, you can see the photo of the cocoon, and you can see how the cocoon is not just like there between the pipes and the electricity. If you look at the wall, you will see how the pipes from the wall kind of melt and morph into organic matter. Yeah. So I felt like, which is always the big question of where does it take all this mass and energy to grow so fast? He has to take it from somewhere, right? It's good that we don't know exactly how he does it, and it's a bit of a magical thing because that's what makes it scary. Again, it's a mystery of the things that makes it work. But I thought it was cool that you see if you really look at the image and the side, and you can see it in the movie a little bit, like the way it's called the pipes end, and they start morphing into the cocoon. So that's why it does almost like absorbing all this energy from the ship itself. And so we thought, well, that makes sense. If the organic, it has to figure out a way to mix the mechanical with the organic and becoming that, which I think is so fitting, right? Because then that's why you also have synthetics in the stories, and they're so important. The 100% mechanical beings, the humans on the other end, and in between them a hybrid, right? A mix of human and machine, right? So something about that I thought it will make sense that if we see it that way, it will explain for the ones that are looking for those things, where does it take those mechanical aspects from.
It was an interesting detail, and you know, I can't remember now if I first noticed it in the film or if it was those cards. So the cards, sorry, just to deviate just a little bit, that's all off your bag, those trading cards?
Yeah, we started with the studio. Studio, I think, made we played and made 4 of them. When we did the VHS, we thought it would be so much fun to do trading cards. I grew up on those. I love the trading cards. I love to go to school and just exchange it with my friends and see who has the easy one and the repeats, and just always looking for the unicorn one, the hard one. It was just such a companion to the movies, you know, at the time in the 90s. It was such a companion because a lot of times where I'm from, you know, in Uruguay, sometimes it will, the album will come out first, you know, for some fucking reason. You know, people complain about spoilers these days. Like, believe me, I read the comic book for Batman, the Tim Burton one that was released at home before the movie. So it's like I saw the whole comic. I knew the whole thing. Didn't take away from my experience at all on opening night in you know, Batman. But you know, still, you know, I try to protect that as much as I can. But the trading card was the thing, and then we thought, well, let's wait until it comes out, and just people that give a shit about those things, we'll release them. And so we did just a few ones, and then I decided just to have control over that, like to do the rest myself, just for fun.
Yeah, they're very delightfully retro looking.
Yeah, well, there's just the same as the original. If you look at the original Alien trading cards, the same design. That's what the studio did. The marketing department, they're great. They just did all, most of all our posters and stuff. They're really, really, really good. And they took it from that original Alien trading cards.
It kind of made me sad they weren't physical.
But I think people can do it. I mean, we'll see if the studio wants to make them. But I know that someone's gonna make them. You know what I mean? Like, if I put them out there, someone's going to print them, and I got to figure out. I have to give them a background, though. The problem is the background. I have to do all the data and all the, usually put a lot of information about what the thing is, and that's at the moment just too much work. But and with my answer to many questions, I also kind of killed the vibe a little bit. When you see the trading cards from original Alien, there's so much information in there that you don't want to read it. It's like, okay, I don't want to know this. It's just too much, and usually makes no, and all the time makes no sense. If you look at I don't know if you've seen go on eBay and looking for the trading cards for Alien.
I have a set behind me somewhere.
Yeah, so they just, some of the things are a bit silly, and the photos I love. They're all like fun, happy, like they're like the publicity stills that they took when no one had any idea what the movie was. So we tried to capture some of that vibe. Yeah,
that was cool. That one took me by surprise, and I was very much appreciative of that. I like trading cards as well. I have all the Alien ones and the AVP ones and stuff like that.
Love them.
So we have a few questions from our community, and our first one is from Kane's son. He refers to a comment you made in a previous interview about the black goo, calling it, quote, the root of all life. Kane's son notes that he thought the movies either alluded that the engineers created it or found it and used it to seed life. He never thought they themselves might be born of it. Was this idea of all life coming from it, including theirs, extrapolated more in your discussions with Ridley?
I think everything that has to do with Prometheus, the Covenant, I think I'm not the right person to answer, because my guess might be as good as yours. You know what I mean? It's just, Ridley's my producer, so we had conversations about it. Anything that he said on the movie, I think if we would be wrong, Ridley would have said, hey, that's not correct. You know what I mean? So when I submit my script to Ridley, this is what I believe to be true, right? Like, this is why I believe to be true as a fan, and whatever he doesn't fight back on, I assume then that's true. If it doesn't say no, then that's where it goes in. Again, also, let's not forget that that's what the guess that Rook is taken based on the information at the time. At the moment, by the time Rook is telling them what this is, and is all he studies seems to point at that's what it is. They would have gotten. That's why, I mean, it's a question that hasn't been asked enough, and I'm surprised how people didn't notice that when they see the holograph, the physical hologram that builds behind him, this beat machine that just, you see the urn, the vase has a name. What is the name? From the black goo from Prometheus. You see it there. So how the fuck does he know? You could ask yourself. But I think at that point, the Prometheus must have sent whatever data they recollect. They might have sent it at some point. Like, the way someone save your work every 20 seconds, you put just a Control S. I'm sure like they were sending data. It's such an important mission. And then they see they're in danger, Idris Elba, someone at the ship, must have, or like Charlize must have gone, okay, let's just send this back to headquarters as we go, and not hope we survive so they might know what happened down here. I'm sure someone sent some signal, some information back to the company about what their discoverings. So it's whatever it is based on what their guess is. But how could they know? How does humans can know based on that movie exactly what it is? I think that's why what they guess is what I would guess, that it seems to be kind of a root of so much life that is in it. And I think the xenomorphs, this seems to be clearly, if they have it inside them, it's like their semen almost. That's how we saw it. Like the black goo is the xenomorph's semen that is inside them, because it's clearly it's not their blood, and they've been harvested for it. There must be something that they produce inside them that is in it. So and it's definitely connected to the Xenomorphs when you see Prometheus, because they're on the walls. They seem to be there already, right? All the imagery like we have here on the sides, you see some of all that sort of imagery. So it feel connected to it. Though the question is like, if the engineers come from the black goo or not, it is literally the chicken or the egg question, right? Like it's if they're the gods that create life, and you're looking for the engineers, and they're the ones that create us, and the movie makes such a big deal about finding this, personally, wouldn't make sense that you make a movie about that and you put all the effort on finding where they have these weapons, because that's not what they came for, and when you have that shot of David looking at his finger saying big thing has small beginnings, and we've been thinking about the origin of humanity, who created us, and he's looking at the black goo. That's my guess. Clearly he must be thinking, otherwise, if it's just an atomic bomb, why would he have an atomic bomb? It's like, hey, humanity, big thing has small beginnings. It has to do with the atomic bomb. If all it is a bioweapon, right? I think that's my guess. And I think if it is my guess, it might be that it could have been the guesses of the scientists and people among that crew, and whatever information they sent back that Weyland-Yutani picked up, and they made their own conclusions. That's all we can really know, right?
Yeah. I gotta know, while we're talking about Xenosemen, although Fede's getting Rule 34 stuff ready for the internet right now. With the Progerius Playpotence and the Man in Malinox Hydra, did you read Alex White's books?
No, I know about it, yeah, and I know it comes out of that. I might have, like I said, like at the beginning, I remember like reading a lot of things that I didn't finish because it's just I'm not talking about that one specifically, but there's some of them that just subpar, right? They were not great.
They're
like,
awesome.
This is like, yeah, there's some generic stuff in there that I was like, I'm not going to learn anything from this. And I didn't want to get wrong canon ideas in my head, because I try to take everything as canon, because that would love, right? Wouldn't you love that it's all canon? It's all part of this whole biblical thing that is all real and it doesn't contradict itself. That would be amazing. So sometimes, so some of the things I might have taken, some of the novels I might start reading and abandon at some point, felt it was taken nowhere. But a lot of my research as well was definitely Xenopedia. That you have your Wikipedia there, you can go there and find and research and find characters and things. And so I was really trying a lot of times with all these things to find that has anybody gave this a name before. So when you go there, you find it, you find the connection, and you really trying to go down the rabbit hole of the quotes and where's this come from, and then you find this is based on this book, and you go and you're trying to find in the book when does it talk about that and make sure it makes sense. And that's how I did all these things. There's all the terms, the terminology, and every science behind the movie, and usually I will go and try to find exactly where is it from? Where is it from? Where that it's been created before, it's been thought of. Again, that's the privilege of making this movie. So you have all these people, really incredible creatives, all the directors of the films and the writers of the novels and the comic books that thought about all this stuff before. So it's all that's a dream. They have all this backstory that you can go and look at it. But again, ideally, just digressing from your question a little bit, but ideally what happens, the way it should be done is in a way that which is the way we made the movie, in a way that you don't have to have really seen the other movies, right? You don't need to, right? I thought it was kind of a shame in a way. I guess maybe, I don't know where it's come from, but it's a shame that some, the audience felt it was, okay, this is part 7, or because that I think a lot of people might thought, oh, it's not for me because I haven't seen any of the other ones, and I all feel like I'm gonna be missing out. But I think some want to call it interquel, and that's why once you start doing those things, you don't do the movie a service by calling that. And I always say the same thing when the Lord of the Rings is coming out. I've read the books. I was like, oh, they go straight to Lord of the Rings, but how the fuck they gonna understand what's going on if you don't do the Hobbit first? And it's a fair point, right? Like this wizard shows up and the most powerful fucking ring in the world is in the house of this fucking Hobbit. How does that make sense? It's like, it just makes no fucking sense. And they, even in the movie, they go so quickly about it. Like, you keep it safe or whatever, fucking, and do you have it? And it was like, why, how does it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't really, you go with the flow of the story and you're set. And then but there's a whole fucking book before that in order for the Lord of the Rings to make sense, you could argue that you need to read. But you see that movie didn't suffer because of that at all, right? So I think that that's the way I see everything that came before. There might be books and movies made about it and all that, but it should work anyways without you having seen those. And it's a privilege that there's all those stories before, and all this, again, go back to terminology and all that. It's all a privilege that you have them. And I really enjoy going at and reading all that and seeing that and playing the games. And before I was hired to do the job, I ever had already done all that. It's not, it's not that you go, okay, I have to learn what this is, obviously. But there was many things I hadn't discovered, and I went on the process of research for this movie that I had the pleasure to go and discover.
It was kind of interesting hearing you actually talk about how deep you dived into things like Xenopedia. Because when we're being nerds on the forums arguing about things, and one of us goes, yeah, but the directors don't give a shit about what happened in that comic over there. And, it's like you say, a lot of the comics, a lot of the books, they're not internally consistent anyway, and we have to bend over backwards to make them fit. But when you started talking about that, I was like, what a nerd. I love it.
Of course. I love this stuff. That's the way I want to see it. But you're not wrong. A lot of filmmakers, they see themselves above it, so they go, I'll tell you what it is, or they just don't enjoy it. For me, it's a joy to try to give sense to it, to embrace it, to not dismiss it because it's just this comic book or this thing that. No, I think the more we can believe it's real, it's magical, and this world of Alien and Predator is a real parallel universe that exists somewhere, and the movies give us a glimpse, give us someone coming from another dimension to tell you the tales of what happened over there, and us have the privilege to hear those stories is great. But those are the best stories, the stories you heard when you were young, and your dad goes like, I want to tell a story. There was this place where this happened, and you're bright eye and wide eye. You go, wow, but why did that happen? But why did he say that? And that's a fandom at the end. You're like, but why did that movie? But wait, why did part 3 this happen? If you told me that in the second one this happened, because you want to believe. You want to believe so badly, right? That you ask those questions. So I'm my passion is be a storyteller. That's why I end up making movies. All my life, since I was a kid, I was a teenager, I wanted to tell stories. In high school, I would do little comic books and I would pass it along in the class, and people would read them and ask me questions about it. And I love it. I was like, oh, it's so good to tell people stories and get them engaged in something and make them believe all this is real somewhere else. So that is the pleasure of it. And when you come into a series, I think that's the job, to try to make sure you have to convince it. And it is the hardest part of this movie, right? I remember I was talking with one of my friends, and he was complaining about a scene that I don't like in the movie, but I had to go through, which is when Rook starts to dump all the exposition about what happened to the Nostromo. Fucking hell, but believe me, there's no fucking way that you got to do it, because unfortunately, you got to deal with that in order to move forward, right? But you have all this baggage, all this press stories, and the thing you try to do the most is to move forwards, right? And move forwards and not being bogged down or slowed down by the other stories. But I think there's a part of the audience that goes like, wait, what? If we wouldn't have said any of that, they would have gone like, where did that thing came from? Like, you just found it laying around in the wreck of a ship. So it's so complex. And believe me, the efforts and the long nights we spend with my co-writer going back to the films, going back to stories, and trying to figure out how can we make sense of this and bring it here. And we have to deal with it. We cannot ignore it. I think the cop out and the lazy aspect approach would have been to ignore some of the things, like it's been done in some franchises and some series. And so, but the challenge that I take on is like, can I make sense of all of it? Can I make sense of all of it? And the only way is they really have to go to the encyclopedia in a way, right? Which is great. That's why I wanted at some point to put on the thanks on the credits to thank to everybody, but Xenopedia is all made of everybody. It's not, I don't think it's a person. I mean, there might be some person that just put together the website, but it's everybody collaborates on it. And I tell you, my biggest pleasure of making this movie, because I spent so much time in that website, is to go now and find ND255 and find the own creations of the movie in it. Best part, to really see it coming alive and seeing the photos and the characters and the explanation of it, because someone put a lot of effort and like explaining the model, and I love that they do it right as well. The ND255, I read it, I was like, okay, good, approved. This is correct. The guesses that they take on what was the purpose of the original was that synthetic, and it was the backbone of the colonization efforts, etc. All that stuff is for me, I just fucking love it. I just, I spend hours reading, going deep into it.
Yeah, some of their editors are on our forum, and I'm sure they'll appreciate you saying that.
Good. No, thank them.
Yeah. If you do get a chance, though, I do really recommend you read Alex's books. Cover to cover. Alex's stuff is some of the pinnacle of the alien experience. You know how highly regarded Isolation is?
Yeah.
Alex's work is the equivalent of the books.
Yeah. Probably. I think. Which one's the one that has Rook Ash putting his consciousness in the Narcissus?
Out of the shadows.
Out of the shadow. Yeah. Is that one good?
They did a really good audio drama of that one as well.
I like the concept of that. I thought it was awesome. The idea that he continues and that Ripley went through the whole adventure and that justify why, she got lost and all that. I thought it was cool.
Is that where you got the idea for the Narcissus Easter egg, maybe?
Here we go. I know. I was like, I'm afraid we're out of time. That's one of the mysteries that I go, okay, any answer will be way wrong. I can tell you, I'll tell you this much. It is a Narcissus. That I can tell. It is a Narcissus. Why? Well, if they can find the fucking, if they manage to find the debris, the remains of the Nostromo, and they found the drifting alien, which, by the way, for anybody that complains, you should be dead. Fuck no. Watch the movie again. There's a lot of light that comes out of the thing, and he just bursts away and he just flows away. He doesn't get destroyed into pieces or anything like that. You don't even see the skin being affected by any. He just get pushed away, right, by the thrusters. That's all I see happening. Same with the Queen, by the way. The Queen is still actually pretty much alive, still screaming as he goes into space. So, like Rook says, lack of oxygen and food, I don't think that will give a shit. The Xenomorph doesn't seem to be affected by that. But anyways, I digress. So if they found that, definitely it wouldn't be hard to find a fucking escape shuttle that's supposed to be meant to the lifeboat of the ship. Definitely might have a beacon or something to find it, so it wouldn't be difficult at all for Weyland Yutani to find it. What was going on with Ripley, that's a different question, and I have a really clear idea what's going on, but I think I shouldn't tell you. If I do, I'll get in trouble. But yes, it is a Narcissus, and yes, it is there. It was probably picked up before the rock. That was the first thing they found, probably. And then you see it, obviously, as people caught it, being to fly out of it at the end, which I don't think is a debris that is just flying on its own. They just, I got lucky. I think someone jumped into that ship.
Oh, interesting.
And escaped right in time. But I am saying too much.
I'm kind of like, what's he not saying because it's in the comic, and what's he not saying because he just doesn't want to?
No, well, I tell you, I can tell you. Well, yeah, I want you guys definitely. That's something. And when is it coming out? Is it
October
I can't wait for it.
16th? I think.
Can't wait for it. We wrote the story with my co-writer, and then the guys that made the comic book just really went on. They did a fantastic job with really fleshing out the whole script and the art. But I haven't really seen the full version yet. I can't wait to see it. But it tells all the events from the moment it starts with the picking up of the rocks. It starts just like the movie, but it tells everything that went down in the Renaissance station from the moment they bring the rock in until everything goes to shit, right? So it's the main character obviously is the Rook. He's the protagonist, so he follows the whole thing. There's other characters as well, the main characters, but it's mostly followed the story of how everything that happened in the station. So I just can't wait. I originally wanted the comic book to come out first. I think maybe based on what I said about I read the comic book for Batman in the 90s, 89, 90, before the movie came out. But I think it's a great companion. Now that people are seeing it and they want to find some answers of what went down, and particularly ask questions about how there's so many xenomorphs, it's, and the other model, et cetera. Like, so it does the job of explaining a lot of that. Why they're on the other side, why they're here, like when did that happen? But all the events of what happens in there.
On the topic of tie-ins, then. How do you feel about the lack of an art book or a novel?
I think that comes. Hopefully, that comes later. I don't know. It's the first time I make one of these films, so I don't know really how it goes down. I hope it's all usually based on, I guess, the success of a film or not. And this, we've been lucky; it's been very successful, and so I'm sure. Look, the company usually will go about, if there's money that they will try to get it. So I'm sure a lot of you would love to have. I would love to have a book of the art of the movie, and we had so much great stuff done by all the team that I couldn't. Can't wait to have it. So, but I haven't heard anything about it. I mean, we'll see if it makes a difference. If I beg for it, maybe they'll go, okay, we'll do it. I'll make sure I let them know, because I would definitely love to see those. And I have a lot of those myself. It's been a big part of the research. So for whoever, down the line, eventually when they make more movies, it's always good to kind of put together those books. It really helps the filmmakers and the future filmmakers and artists to kind of discover and understand, to really be able to see more closely what the movie did, because you get a lot of details in the film, but you get a lot more details out of those books, obviously.
Yeah, we always say that this period is the fun part. We get to take the film in and the context of it as you present it, but then we also get to witness the other talent that was involved. All these different explorations, interpretations, possibilities. I was at what was it called? Concept 101. It was like a big art convention thing last week. And some of the artists were doing a Romulus panel there.
That's great.
Matt Savage, Cole Price, Nick Staff.
Yeah.
And they were singing your praises, by the way.
No, they're the best, these guys. Yeah. We were like all in the trenches together early on, like conceiving this whole universe, with them and Naaman Marshall, the production designer. But they're the best. It's really an amazing team. We did also something that I haven't talked about this before, but I thought they were saying some of that online. We did a very strange but very interesting approach to concept design for the film, which was, there was a call. I should find it. I might have recorded it somewhere. We did a Zoom call with all the artists. So we try to get the best at, the best of the best out there, and fans as well, people that really meant something for them, the franchise that really meant something for them, that it wasn't just, oh yeah, I'll look at this film. So we brought all together, and then something that tends to happen is that you have the X amount of artists, and one artist is you give them the job of like creating this particular lab, then the other artist gets this hallway, and that's how you do most of it. And this guy gets the creatures, and you have the creature guy, you have the space landscape guy, and everybody has an expertise. And usually you assign them, you tell them go to run with some idea, and I brief them what I have in mind, and they go for it. But what we try here, I think it really paid off, was I pitched it to them as more of an open source kind of approach to the thing, which meant like people will get their assignments, but everybody's allowed to pitch in their idea. So let's say you're the creature guy, and we talk about someone is going to do the station, the Renaissance station is working on that. You were completely allowed in there. There was a online folder, so everybody dropped the art. And so everybody was allowed to not only to pitch their own idea, but they were allowed to pick up someone else's idea, redo it, and make it better and put it back in, which usually you don't do because there's just the ego, the proud of each one of the, that's my design. But I was like, there's no ego in this dojo. It was like, there's no me or what's my design here. It's all of it. What's important here is to make the best thing we can do. So that was the condition for everybody. You have to allow that if you do something, another artist here can take it and redo it and throw it back in there. That's how the open source software works, right? Anybody can rewrite it and put it back, and there's no like it's my creation, it's mine, and I take credit for that. And there's definitely artists that can really take credit for specific designs, absolutely, but it was always help for someone else to just redo it. These days a lot of the designs are done in 3D first, so and then they paint on top of them, and you get the concept art. So I would ask them to each one of them when they did that to put the assets of the 3D files online so the other artists could take it, tweak it, and put it back in there. So and I think that also made it more uniform. It didn't feel disconnected. It was so much, which is a lot, obviously, the great work of the production designer of Neyman Marshall to just make sure everything feels coherent as one single vision, right? But it was truly, those guys were amazing, and they did an incredible job, and we had a lot of fun doing it. I think once you take away that idea of like it's going to be just you and the whole thing depends on your vision, it make them take risk and try different things and kind of experiment and get inspired by the ideas of the other ones as well. If you were struggling with your concept, you were tasked the station, and then you saw the creature guy throwing an idea in there, you go, that's cool, and you will just run with it, and it just made it a lot more fun and creative for everybody. I think it benefit the movie benefits at the end, which means the audience benefit.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have another community question here from Razi, hope I'm saying that right, asks, is Weyland-Yutani completely evil from top to bottom? For example, the Hadley's Hope Colony and Gateway Station don't appear to be as authoritarian and intentionally cruel as Jackson's Star. Even Van Leeuwen didn't appear to be a bad guy on the surface. Is it more complex than that?
I think it's definitely more complex. I don't think they're, I would say, first of all, as a writer, I can never think or agree as I'm writing that they're evil, right? Because you'll do a shitty job, right? Because what does that mean? You're evil. Like, so I'll put an example very clearly. Let's say at the moment there is, actually not far from the truth. There's some astronauts that are stranded in space, like it happened with those poor people from NASA that they're trying to bring back, right? How many of them are there?
I think it's about 3.
Okay, 3 guys, human beings. They're all lost out there. Suddenly, we find out, and I heard, I was reading about this heartbeats that they heard or whatever. So imagine suddenly they find something, an alien species, humanoid, strange, like you, and humanity. All of us here are faced with a choice. Either they bring back the creature or we bring back the 3 humans and they kill the creature. What do you prefer? If we put it to a vote, I can guarantee humanity will go like, we have plenty of human beings down here. But that creature I never saw in my life, they will say, it's fine. Look, it's fine. We have billions of humans on Earth. We know what those are. People die every fucking minute. You talk and 100 people died in a car crash in your city. So, but aliens you never saw. So we all agree very quickly that the crew is expendable, right? Like, I guarantee you most of humanity will agree with that. You can bring me the Xenomorph, is the alien is a priority, because I've never seen one of those, and we can learn so much from it, and maybe we can cure cancer to whatever is inside that thing. So it actually wise. I'm thinking as a writer, but also as a person. I mean, like, no, I think most people will go like, okay, I would love that everybody comes back, but if I have to choose, I think there would be more gain for humanity if we find out what that thing is, instead of just kill it, throw it out of the fucking airlock, and bring back the 3 guys that gotta go, wow, I had no idea what that was. It's incredible, So, but when you watch it in the movie, you go, what a fucking evil corporation, don't you? But I would say most people agree with them. So that's the complexity of it. That's the complexity. It's the same thing as, is it Andy evil when he lets Kay being taken on the other side of the door? I can guarantee you what he says is correct. You cannot hear what he says on the scene. You can really, if you lean in, you'll hear, but he's saying something in the lines of like, it takes 2 seconds for that door to open, another second to take command, which means by the time I press it, and another 2 seconds to close. That's plenty of time for the creature to get in here. And so, and he knows, and we know in the Xenomorph, like, no questions asked, he would have definitely got in there and killed them all. So he's doing what he has to do to save the majority. Is he evil? No, but breaks your fucking heart when you see it, and justify why Rain gets so upset. Like, there's no humanity on that choice. That's why he's so scared. There's no humanity. And so corporations in general, they try not to have the flaws of the human heart that they might see as weakness, right? So they try to be as effective as they can, and Weyland-Yutani is trying to be as effective and cold blooded to do a greater good. That's what they're trying to do all the time. Because even in the world of Aliens, when Burke says, think about, for the weapon divisions, we don't know what wars they're going on. There might be some wars that are horrendous. There might be some people that you actually, if you know about them, you'll go, fuck it, please unleash those Xenomorphs on that planet. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. So even there, like, when you go, what, that's evil, you don't know. Even, I would say even more, when they say at the beginning of Aliens, they deny, they kind of don't, they roll their eyes at Ripley and to the, after the facts of this movie and what I said, but probably someone must know that that's a real thing. Those guys there at that table don't know. They're not the high end, it's not fucking like, it's not, Peter Weyland is not there at the table going like, you know what I mean? Like, and I've worked with studios where you're with a group of people at the table, and I asked something about what happened with where's the original file, the original tapes for the recording of this particular thing of that movie, or is there a vault where you guys have this or that? And usually people really high up in the studio going to go like, I have no idea what you're talking about. and sometimes even we have this idea that there's one mentality and everybody in the corporation knows, but no, there's levels of people that know very high up. They know things that really, you go down a couple steps and they have no idea what's going on. Right. So I think that's the same for Weyland-Yutani. It's not one single human being. It's a big company, different branches. Information travels very slow in space. It takes years for a message to get somewhere in space. It's the reality of the science behind the science fiction. So I think we give them too much credit, like we do with corporations in general. They're way more organized than they actually are. So I think and there's evil people inside the corporation. I'm pretty sure. Are they all evil? No, I'm sure there's people that go into work for Weyland-Yutani with great intentions about, doing some good and really actually building better worlds. Again, we think those worlds they build are shitty. We haven't seen Earth yet. I don't know, that looks probably terrible. And if based on whatever you saw at the end of Resurrection, the extended cut, whatever, like, again, that's not supposed to be the thing, but still didn't look so good to me. So there must be a reason why in Aliens they don't really on Earth and they're like hovering outside and she's living on that thing. Like, definitely things are not great down there. So so maybe those worlds that we think are terrible and they claimed are better, who knows? We haven't seen the other ones. So, I don't think you can never really write anything, do anybody a service and the characters like by saying they're evil. I think one of the worst things in our movies when the clerk cheats, right, and change and adds more time to her things. But that, I don't think, I would say maybe she's not cheating. She's just, they haven't told them, they didn't disclose to them because they want them to reach that place and then tell them probably more. That's probably the rules, and it's probably in the fine print of whatever she signed originally, that the company might at their own discretion change the amount of hours you need to do to get out of the planet, right, to be able to be given a travel permit.
I think what some fans were noticing is, we haven't seen a lot of just daily life in a society in the Alien universe. And you give us a real glimpse of that in Jackson Star. I mean, we see Ripley in her apartment on Gateway. We see a bit of the Hadley's Hope colony in James Cameron's special edition. Yeah. But this Jackson Star colony was exceptionally bleak. Mm-hmm. And for me as a fan watching it for the first time, I'm like, this is almost like cyberpunkish. Like, this is like very dystopian. And I've always thought like Alien was very subtle in its dystopianism, but I thought about it logically in my head. I was like, okay, not every colony is going to be great. There's some that are probably going to be on a downward trajectory, not doing well, and they're still trying to hang on. I mean, even Alien Isolation is like that with the downfall of Sebastopol Station. Yeah. So,
no, that's why they're all probably different. I think some did better than others, but that's a history of cities and humanity. Like every city, they start somewhere in the world. They started because there was a good reason, and it was a thriving place at some point, like every city. And now you look back and there's some cities are, in the Nordic countries are like, bursting with life and they're great. And there's some cities in South America that are terrible and there's so much poverty. But at the time when they built them, they made sense. There was some resources there. There was some reason, and people went there in masses to exploit that. And then those, whatever was zero resource was dried, and then there you have crisis. That's where I'm from, like in Uruguay there was this burst in, there still is, in Uruguay. I love my country, it's great, but there was a project originally that didn't so well, but look at Detroit, it's the same. Like there's a time it was fucking great, best city in the world, and now it's not the case anymore. There's a lot of poverty and crisis there. But so that's why I thought it was just being realistic with science fiction. Like, look, you put a lot of people in a mining colony. It's very hard to move people around in, travel in, space, years of traveling to get there. You're not going to take them out because they want to get out. It's so expensive to get them out of there. And then the mines might be going dry, and there's a lot more problems that you expected. What are you going to do with those thousands of people that live there? Corporation, there would be no money on taking them back home. It would be just like billions spent on taking them out of there to get nothing in return. And that's when no corporation will do that. It's the evil aspect of the corporation, because it's the bottom line what matters. And so it will probably be physically really hard to get them out of there. I guess Covenant ships do exist at that point. I don't think they will invest in, it's good they will invest the money in a Covenant ship to send them somewhere and start a new colony where they can profit from it. To just send them a ship just to take them out of there, take them back home because they ask him for that, I doubt they'll do. So I think the reality of, if you have a lot of resources and you have more people at a time that you expected originally, because people will reproduce naturally, they will have kids and there will be more of them, but maybe you didn't account for that, and there's no resources, it will just look bleak. But it was one of my favorite things of doing it, because I still have very fresh memory of seeing the bar neon sign, when they get to Hadley's Hope the first time, and go, wow, there's like, it's the human element again that makes you go, wow. Usually it's like, there's a fucking bar. They go to that bar. People go to work. They work in this planet and they go to have a beer at the end of the day. It blew my mind. So I love that we turn into some like seedy joint in our movie, like with some prostitutes outside and just some pimp. Like, it's just like, oh boy, that's not what I thought was the bar. But it is in this colony, and Jackson Star, things didn't go so well, and that's why it's in crisis. But it seems to be happening in a lot of places, according to Rook. He says like the colonists are dying. He says like that there's so many issues that they didn't foresee that happen everywhere, and what they're looking to do with the Z01 compound is trying to figure out a way to make humans better, to make them be able to survive all these problems. Imagine if they have the abilities of the Xenomorph, they don't even need food. What a dream for a company. They don't have to even feed their workers, and they're resilient, and it can be just working and working. So that's, again, it's a double thing. Are they doing it because it's evil? Do you really want to save the dying miners, or they just do it for their own profits? That's two different ways of seeing the world, right? So, yeah,
it's an aspect of the franchise. The whole corporate angle, the dystopian angle. It's something I've appreciated as I've got older, and I've worked for larger global service companies, and I don't want to say evil so much as I think indifference is sometimes the worst aspects. You are so far down that you're not even worth thinking about. This several thousand. Oh, okay, that's exaggerated. But there's many middle managers before I even need to think of you, and I think it's something I don't think you appreciate those aspects of the franchise, of the storytelling, until you are in a similar situation, or you've had that experience. Like there's so much stuff that you think is, or you could think from a story point of view of, that's stupid. How could they not know that? Or how could they know that? And stuff like that. And then you experience that level of miscommunication or simple ignorance, and then you're like, okay, this makes sense. I can
also, you have to remember that also, but was part of why we didn't want to lean too heavily on that aspect. It's definitely there in the movie, and it was the fact that in '79 it was a radical idea in a way. It was a wow, why eye-opening. Wow, maybe corporations do not care about their workers, but we're not going to surprise anybody with that twist these days, right? Like most people understand that, and everybody's familiar with that concept. Like big corporation, won't be about the individual for sure. It would never be about one single individual and what's going on. And so I thought it needed to be a part of it, but it was never going to be the big twist that they're expendable or anything like that. I think we know that from the very beginning, and that's why we start there. Yeah, this corporation doesn't give a shit about their workers. So make sure that's not the twist in this one, right?
So we have another question from one of our staff members and author of the amazing Strange Shapes blog, Valaquin, wants to know, what moment or image do you want people to take away from Romulus?
I think it's not one specific moment. It's just the experience of it. I tell you, like what I tried to do, my co-writer in this film, is like you try to hopefully for a new generation to give them something that comes close to what the original movies gave us at the time. I remember, like, that it's maybe too specific, but I know just it happened to me. It happens to a lot of people. I was watching the movie with my kid, and he was with one of his friends, and his friends was about to turn 12. The movie ended, and I turned to my kid, and I see the other kid turning at him like this, and looks at my son and goes like, "That was the best movie I've seen in my whole life," he said, right? So of course we got like, yeah, sure, whatever. But the truth is that most of us watched Alien and Aliens when we were at that age, right? And people that were older would never agree that these movies are like life-changing, fantastic masterpieces, right? Because they're older, they've seen it before, whatever. Even as great as those movies were, people that was not the reaction. But that is what I hope to happen. What I want to happen is exactly what happened with that kid, because that kid will grow and will have this, and he will forget about the movie at some point. And then when he's like 17, 18, he will remember. He will talk with friends. Remember when that movie? Remember that night when we went to see that movie? Fucking hell. And then he will just look online if there's a t-shirt. It's going to find an old t-shirt from 26, and he's going to have it. And that's the love, that our relationship with these franchises, with these movies, is something that happens to us when we're 12, 13 most of the time, right when we're becoming more of a man and stop being a child and discover these things. At the moment, they made an impact that you don't even understand. No one watch it and goes like, I'm a fan right away. That's a thing of mentality today. Like, you watch it, I'm a fan. No one did that at the time. I didn't watch Terminator 2 and was like, I'm going to be a fan of this movie for the rest of my life. Or Back to the Future, for what matters. You watch it and you go, and sometimes you don't even comment on it. You just walk home and go, wow. And then someone mentions something else and you move away. I wish I could see a video of when I watched the first Back to the Future. I'd say it's one of my favorite movies ever. I probably wasn't a whole debate, or we probably didn't even talk about it with my friends. We watch it, we're like, wow. And then my mother came in, asked for something, move on, forgot about it. And then the years went by, and then, Back to the 2 comes in, but I probably saw it very close because of the time that I saw it. But it comes later in life. It comes later. The Terminator 2, I remember watching, fucking blow my mind, and everybody at the time, they kind of forget. And then later in the 90s, you start thinking about it. And then usually once you reach your 20s, you start thinking and you realize, I never had an experience like that again in my life. And that was so special. And you start thinking and remembering, and you talk about, you remember when you see that movie? And then is a fandom, then is religion, and then is like that deep connection you have with it. It's rarely right at the time. It never happens that way. People wanted to have it, and people trying to fabricate those things at the time now, like, watch it and you're a big fan of this thing. But all these things we'll have to see. I'm sure people will have that with the Marvel movies 10, 15 years from now. They're going to remember that decade that they watch everything from Iron Man to Endgame and whatever is the order of it. And you go, fuck, remember those days? And maybe at the time right now, probably in 5 years, they won't even remember. They're going to move on with their lives and think it's not a big deal. And then they're going to remember how much of a big deal it was. So the same with this. And that's really what I hope to do. And I've seen it with Evil Dead, my first film. When it came out, a lot of people were like, sure, whatever, it's not as good as the original, sure. But there was a generation that was 12, 13 when they saw it in theaters. And I can guarantee you at the time, there was nothing like that on the mainstream cinema, right? Like, that's a level of horror and gore and violence and the tree rape. Oh my fucking God. Like, it was nothing like that. And there was a generation of kids that watched it when you're not supposed to watch it, or you're supposed, accordingly to, you're not supposed to go without your parents, but they watch it anyways. And those kids have tattoos on their bodies about it now. I get, every other day, someone will send me a photo of someone that has a tattoo of that film. And there are people that are 22, 23. They were 12 when that movie came out. And now someone sent me recently, they tattoo their whole chest with the final image of that film of Mia going with the chainsaw in the head. So, say whatever. I'm sure someone told him at the time to that kid, like, yeah, the good one is the one from Sam Raimi. Yeah, sure. Didn't fucking matter to that kid, just like it didn't matter to me when my dad told me The Fly was made already before in the 50s at the time when I watched Cronenberg's The Fly. It doesn't make a difference. Or The Thing was already a remake of the Thing from another planet. That's how the things work. And that's what I hope to do. I hope to imprint in a new generation something that will stay with them forever and be really truly special. That's the biggest ambition. On the smaller scale, I hope you have a great time to 2 hours. You have nothing better to do. You went to the cinema, you paid $10, $15 what it costs, and you were like, wow, it's money well spent. That is as low as level is that. But the biggest level of ambition of what I hope it takes away is that an experience that in many years from now, they will look back on it and go, wow. So that's why it's just an overall thing.
Want to make an impact.
Things, yeah. Things and the specifics, the specifics is really nothing. It just don't have to be my idea. It's really a chest bursting scene. It's one of the things I'm more proud about of that film, because it's done, with practical effects and with the guys that work in the original, and it was and done more of as a documentary that trying to go for shock. It was just like slow birth of this thing, and I felt it was the first time I was seeing that happening the way it would happen in real life in a way, and things like that. I'm very proud of it. It's just that's my ideas and a lot of people's ideas combined and one scene, and obviously Ridley's. So stuff like that. It's just, I hope they make an impact that they remember, because we really put a lot of work on it and love in it. But that's the whole movie, right? Like, there's no part of this movie that we would dismiss as like, oh, this is like let's not put so much effort on this. Every frame of the movie has a lot of work and thinking and passion by me and everybody involved in the film, right?
I think that's one of the things I really took away coming out of the thing, out of watching it, you know, out of the methodology that you put into it, out of the you know, the respect for the law. You know, feels in very much every way a love letter from you and everybody who's working on it.
Absolutely.
And it's funny you mentioned the impact thing as well, because you are now responsible for 2 of my cinema memories. Again, with that Offspring, that first moment of the Offspring, but yours is Your Evil Dead is one of 3 films I've had to step out of in my life. One,
I love that. That's a compliment. I walked out of you.
No, hang on. Let me finish, Fede. Let me finish. The first was Shrooms because it was a terribly shit movie. The second was one of the Saws because I had too much to eat and there was a very graphic moment that made me have to go and step outside. The third was Evil Dead for the moment when I forget who it was. Somebody holds their hand up to
Eric, the one that gets all the beating,
and I nearly threw up in the cinema then and there. The shock and the intensity of it. I had to go outside. I had to spend 5 minutes out there to catch my breath, and then walk back in.
That's great.
And that is one of my cinema memories. And you're making me sad that it was 10 years ago.
It was actually 11 now. It's 2013. Crazy. So, but I remember seeing that on the theater a few times on the screens. Like people, my favorite, I always say, I think it was in London actually, and I watched at one of those moments, someone like sitting like 5 rows in front of me. I'm kind of on the side and the back, and that person just stands out, shaking their head no, like fuck this, you know. And as they walk out, they start drifting towards the end. Like I can see they're fainting as they go, and they go and they hit the column like straight on, bang, and they land right next to me. And I remember enjoying that. It was like, yeah, that's what you get trying to walk out. He was fine, but he was like, clearly he stand up too fast, and the pressure, you know, the blood pressure. I think if you stand up too fast in a moment like that, it's not a good idea. So it was fainted and ended up landing right next to me. And I don't know where that person is. I'm sorry, but it was really, I felt like whatever we're doing the right thing, because the goal of that movie was to accomplish that, right? It was to get as intense as humanly possible.
Did you hear about the story coming out of China with Romulus?
Oh yeah.
With the family taking the kid.
Oh no! Oh the lawsuit.
Oh yes.
I heard something. So tell me what's the story. See if it's what I heard.
So this mum and dad took their kid to go and watch Romulus. Ended up crapping the pants because of, you know, it's fucking horror. Then
how old was the kid?
Preteens, maybe.
Preteens. Yeah.
So something like that came out and then started to sue the cinema chain, I think it was, that it showed it. And, you know, that's the kind of...
I think that's what made it being a big hit, because we started in 12% of the cinemas, and then by the next weekend they expanded 25% of the cinemas, and it actually made more money at the moment in China than the United States, which it never does. I mean, this movie's rarely work in China, and this last few years there hasn't been any American movies that really work there. But I tell you more, I think it's that, but also going back to what we're talking about, this kind of the oppressive society and the government kind of cheating the rules, that blew their minds, because the movies are usually censored there, but this is, for some reason, it went on screens uncensored. So what you guys saw is the same thing they play in China. And I've done, and then I did an hour, couple hours press for Chinese outlets and influencers and etc. And everybody would ask me about that, like, why, if it was intentional reference in China. And I was like, no, it's intentional reference to where I'm from, South America, and growing up in a small country with not a lot of possibilities, and dreaming about one day maybe making out of there and make it to this other place, whatever it is, that is where things are better. But just the youth connected with those characters so much, and that it made it, it's gonna make 100 million something, I think, in China, so which is crazy.
Yeah, and we are so thankful that it seems to do so well, because it means you might get to do another one in 3 or 4 years. We've just got two more, and then we'll let you disappear. And this one is, I'm afraid, one of those cliched questions, but it is one everybody always loves to fucking hear from people who work on the films. And I don't think I've heard you speak about this yet, actually. So, did you take any souvenirs from your time on Romulus? Is Rook sat on your kitchen table right now?
No, I'm trying to think around here. I don't have anything here, but I do have a few things. What did I take? I think I have some of them. Actually, I lend them back to the studio, and they were going to give back to me. But I have pulse rifles created by Weta, with the best toy in the world, because they had a kickback when you shoot it, so it really could shake the shoulder of the actor. It had a light in the front so we didn't have to CG any of the big bursts of light. It had smoke coming out of it as it got hotter. As you shoot and it gets hotter, not only the barrel gets red, but also starts smoking hot. And I thought it was awesome.
That was a detail I really liked.
Yeah, it's a really, really incredible, the best rifle toy you'll ever have. Then, so you have that one. I should maybe one day get it to turn into airsoft or something, just to really make it even better.
I have a pulse rifle, an airsoft pulse rifle.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. So that I have one of those. I have Bjorn's taser. I have an Offspring mask that were used for the stunt double, but they're pretty creepy, and that one I love to scare people with. What else do you have? I have a couple of Facehuggers by Weta. Those are incredible. I do not have the RC one, which was incredible. That I don't. I have just the bendable ones that are just great. What else do you have? I have Andy's chip. That's one of my favorite. The model with the upgrade that you can place, the Rook upgrade that you can place on it. I don't have, which I should have taken. Two things I wish I would have taken is the key that Rain has to reset Andy, that I didn't take. I should have taken that. It was a beautiful prop. And then the one that I regret the most, that I'm chasing at the time, trying to find, is the X-ray torch. At the time, someone told me you want to keep this. I was like, nah, it's fine. And then now it's such an iconic thing of the movie, the X-ray moment, that I'm like, God damn it, I should have kept that one. So usually those things, someone takes them at some point. So someone has that one. But there might be some other thing. I have some clothes, I'm sure, that I took. I have my Reeboks before anybody else. I got those ones. I had them when we finished the movie, right?
Right. They sold out like that.
Yeah, thank God. That's a good sign. Then what else do I have? Some clothes. I think I might have something else. I've forgotten. But the props goes, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good collection.
Yeah.
So last one then, and it's more of an open thing, before we let you pop off and bask in that next sunrise. I love that stuff, by the way, in the film, that motivation of seeing the sun. Was there anything that you wanted to say, any thought or anecdote specifically that you were like, I need to make sure I tell the audience, that we just haven't given you the chance with any of the questions?
Not really. I mean, we kind of cover it all. I think this is the longest conversation I had about this movie since the movie ever. So it's beautiful. It's the way I wanted it, and you guys are great. You guys really know this franchise like anybody else, like no one else. So I mean, so there's for me, that's the pleasure of this conversation, is to really go deep in it. And look, I know, which I think that luckily it happens with my friends. It will happen more with my friends when they start complaining more. I thought you guys were going to complain more. I'm sure you have complaints that you're being too polite to tell me, but it would have been all fair. You can tell me about it. I'll defend it or not. It depends on what it is. But it's really, that's the beauty of these films. I think that's what happened to me when I was watching the originals. When I went to see Alien 3 on opening night and Resurrection, all those films, it's always been Prometheus, Covenant, AVP. Like it's always been, you watch it and then you debate about what was good, what was bad, and then eventually, usually not at the time, but then you have to let some years go by, and then you make a decision: did I like that movie or not? Right? Like I think that's always a decision you make later. The only thing you can tell now is what things you enjoy about it or not, and if you were bored or not. I think anybody was. I mean, if someone was bored watching this movie, you don't give a shit about this, or I don't know. I mean, I think I take pride of make sure I never make a movie that is fucking boring or that you can disengage. That's why it's so frenetic and so schizophrenic almost at some point. There's so much shit happening. It's just me making sure you never look at your phone, and you're never bored about the story. And it's really hard to do. And you need to have characters that are good and motivations that you get behind and to really keep watching. But I'm super happy and proud that the film has worked so well, and that is like bringing it to a new generation at the end of the day. For us, the fans and the older fans, I think it's always going to be almost impossible, like literally impossible to get you to love it and put it up there with the originals. It's just impossible. It's just never going to happen. Even if the movie is better or is equally good, or even if we could achieve something like that, it's never going to happen, because that night, that day you went and see it, the day you watch those movies, that makes such an impact. There was a perfect storm of things that happened at that point, and that's what makes it so special. It's beyond the sum of its parts. It's just, and you watch them so many times as well. It's just what drives me crazy when people compare them. It's like, you cannot compare these characters to fucking Hicks and Hudson. Like, there's just no way. But that can guarantee you as well that when you watch, you watch Aliens and you didn't walk out of that movie, maybe I'm wrong, but you didn't spend the whole next week talking about Hicks. I don't think you did. I think you watched the movie, you were like blown away by Aliens, and you thought about it, and then you watch it many times, and then one day you realize like, Hicks is so cool, right? Or whoever you want, but people might have even watched that movie the first time and not even remember Vasquez, and going like, there was so much shit going on that you don't, and then you read the reviews all over Alien, there will be people shitting on like the two-dimensional characters, and whatever. And now you look back and it's a legend. You think about Vasquez and you go, what the fucking legend? But it's because you watch it so many times. So when people compare it, it's just so unfair. But even, like I said, even if they were at the same level, it would never be the same, because the experience you have. But for a new audience, for a new generation, hopefully those kids that watch it and go like, what the fuck was that? Stays with them. They rewatch it, and then one day, those characters will become special for them. I'm actually really proud that Andy has already taken such a good place, because he's such a great character, and the actor did such a fantastic job with what was on the page, and he's already at that level of people going, wow. And I think Kaylee did fantastic as well for everything that he had, and the times that it was trying that this movie's tried to bring a new female hero. I think she really stands out and does a fucking incredible job in the film. But then I think hopefully with the rewatches, it will extend the love to a lot of the other characters. I think all the actors did so well. So anyways, thank you guys. This was a privilege.
Well, thank you.
Thank
so
you
much for coming on.
Did you get your hat?
I did get my hat. When I just noticed you had it, I was like, oh, sure, I wore my hat. Thank you so much for that.
No worries. As soon as you said it, I was like, I need to fucking make one of those.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I got it a couple of weeks ago, I think. Yeah. We actually commissioned that from a friend of mine in LA, an artist who was with Legacy Effects, Adam Milicevic.
Oh, great. That's why. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, guys. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our interview with Fede Alvarez, the director of Alien Romulus. Again, it's always a treat to be able to talk to the directors of these movies. I've gotten to do it 3 times now, Aaron. I know you've got to do it more than that, but it's always just so awesome when we get to do that. So a big thank you to Fede and his team and his assistant for making this possible. We really, really appreciate it.
Definitely. I think Fede's the first Alien director we've had on the show, though.
Yep, that's right. We've had 3 Predator directors. And
Stephen Hopkins, Nimrod Antal, Dan Trachtenberg.
Yeah. And Fede was our first Alien director, so hopefully
Although we did get to speak to, I got to speak to, Ridley Scott, and it is still one of the worst.
Yeah, but he wasn't on the podcast, so that doesn't count.
The video's on YouTube, though. Still one of the biggest wasted opportunities I've ever had, and I hate myself forever for it.
Oh, you did fine, mate.
But no, it was an absolute pleasure to talk to Fede. He's a genuinely down to the earth guy, and soon as I saw him speaking at some of the presentation stuff, and he has my use of colourful language, I immediately bonded with him without him even knowing about it, purely from the swears that were coming out of his mouth. But no, it was a genuine pleasure to talk to him. This one was a little difficult for us to get going because we thought we'd only have him for
45 minutes. 45.
Yeah,
it was 45.
It was something low. So I don't feel we were quite as organized questionally as we could have been had we known Fede would have just spent all that time with us. So it might. I tried my best in the edit to make sure it flowed well. You video viewers won't notice because I don't touch the video, but for the audio listeners, I hope I did a good job keeping this one nice and clean for you. And let me know if the shit I do is worth it. Because that has been becoming a point of contention for us, isn't it? Where's the Fede interview? I'm busy. I'm doing it.
Aaron loves his audio clean.
I try. I still don't know if it's worth it, but when it comes to episodes like this, when we talk to a fucking writer-director, and we've got more in the works. We also have an interview with the alien suit performer Trevor Newlin, which will probably be the next one. I've got such a backlog of other interviews and stuff as well to do, but I can't really commit to any schedule. But we've also got other stuff in the lineup for Romulus related interviews, as well as a big roundtable for Isolation that I need to get sorted soon. So that will be coming over the next coming months. We're going to have loads. There's going to be loads of shit out over the next couple of months.
The excitement for Romulus has not died down. We just got a Blu-ray announcement. I know I'll be picking up the Steelbook for that and diving into all the special features. So I'm sure we'll have more to talk about with this movie.
Definitely. And as of recording of this and outro for the podcast, Adam has just shared a new editorial piece on the website and the YouTube channel. What's that, Adam?
Yeah, so this is an extensive piece I did on the canceled AVP rides and lands that were supposed to be at 20th Century Fox World in Malaysia, eventually became Genting Skyworlds, and unfortunately this license wasn't able to remain, so it had to be hastily rethemed. But yeah, I reached out to some people and they provided me with some never before seen materials, so we hope you enjoy that. And honestly, I just hope it's a good record of the work that went into this that unfortunately we'll never be able to experience in person. So I hope you all enjoy that one.
And if you do, let us know, because there are more parks and rides and stuff that never came to be. And if there's an appetite for this kind of content, maybe we can actually get Adam doing some more work and get him to do pieces on other things, other rides. Alien 3D, I think, is one on the Blu-ray that nobody ever talks about, stuff like that. So let us know and give Adam some affirmative, positive feedback. Let's get him working, guys, girls out there.
Thanks, boss.
And at the end of the video, I've snipped it out of the audio version of the interview, but at the end of the video version of this, I mentioned a hat that I'd sent to Fede, which was based on a comment he'd made during some of the press rounds about them joking about making a Make Alien Scary hat again. We actually got that made. We commissioned, I can never remember how to pronounce his surname, Adam
Milicevic. It took me a while to get it. So,
who worked on the film, actually, worked at Legacy, and he is also, are we allowed to talk about the other things he's done? Has he talked about those?
Well, he recently shared some. He did some work on the Alien Cocoon. I know there's some other stuff he worked on in the movie that he has not posted
non-movie
yet.
stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's posted artwork. He was the creative lead for the Halloween Horror Nights maze in Japan. So that's something we're probably going to have him on the podcast for, kind of focusing on that as well as the work he did on Romulus.
Indeed. And that's a cool piece, actually. And that's available to purchase on our TeePublic. If you're watching on YouTube, there's links down below to TeePublic. If not,
TeePublic integration.
Indeed.
Finally.
One of the early testers of that, actually, I believe we are. And if you're listening, if you head to avpgalaxy.net, there's a link to the TeePublic page on the socials section there where we link to all the other bits and pieces. And there's more than just the hat, of course. You know, you can get that image that we've had on shirts, jumpers, everything. You know what TeePublic's like. All the designs that we upload can be had on a bunch of different stuff. And we've got a couple of exclusives, and we share some other people's stuff on there as well. So go check it out, help support us, support the other artists, and rep the franchise. I think that's everything, Adam.
Yeah, I think that's it for this one.
Do you want to hold the socials and then we'll wrap?
Oh, sure. So you can always find us on our website, avpgalaxy.net. We are also on all the major social channels, Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. A big thank you, as always, to our Patreon supporters who make what we do possible and really help us out as we... the amount of time we put into this, it does help quite a bit. So a big thank you to all of those who support us via Patreon.
Indeed. Well, thank you everybody for listening or watching, and thank you once again to Fede and everybody who helped make that interview possible, that being his assistant. Thank you very much for the people who do work that goes unseen. This has been Aaron Percival
and Adam Zeller
signing off.